I do not know how, with sufficient urgency and emphasis, to discuss the dire situation in Gary, Indiana. There is the ongoing crisis right now that is happening, and there is the way that it portends what can happen, what might happen in communities all across the country if things continue to go down the path that Donald Trump and the Republicans are leading us on. I have family members, a lot of family members in Indiana, and I had heard nothing about what was going on in Gary until I saw a young woman on social media who was holding her puppy and talking about how there had been no power in Gary for a week after they had had a derecho and a series of tornadoes. I hadn't heard anything about it anywhere on any news outlet. So it's not uncommon in the Midwest in late summer for there to be serious thunderstorms, tornadoes, even occasionally a derecho, which has wind speeds as high as a tornado and can be even more devastating. So a number of communities had building damage and downed trees and down power lines and a loss of power. However, the utility company was able to restore fairly quickly service to everywhere except Gary.
Still without power. They've got nothing. Tonight, the region's electric company reports that about 40,000 customers don't have power. That is down from almost 375,000. But they say that Gary, Indiana may not be completely restored until next Tuesday. Residents say they are frustrated.
It's hot, you're miserable. Like, I love the sun, but right now I'm not happy to see the sun because it's gonna make it hot. Yeah, and you got your windows all open and stuff, you know, that's the only way you can survive.
For almost 2 weeks, the residents of Gary, Indiana have had no electricity. And without electricity, they can't do things like run the pumps to their wells. So people don't have electricity, they don't have water. Gas stations can't pump gas. There's a gas shortage. You see the roads are full of cars just backed up out of gas. They can't get out of Gary. It's a real crisis situation. Why? Why are the tens of thousands of residents of Gary, Indiana not getting the same kind of assistance and resources and restoration of their utilities as other parts of the Midwest, as other parts of the Hoosier state? Well, let me play a couple of clips here for you from residents, and I want you to tell me if you can figure out what's going on.
Gary. Reporting live. Gary, Indiana. August 13, 2026. My grandma got a tree on her house. If there are any services, anybody that can help us, please reach out ASAP. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, friends? We are here live in Gary, Indiana, where a tornado has swept through, and I'm not sure where it did landed, but it definitely messed up most of the city. All the power is out, as far as I know, all across Gary, Indiana.
It's somebody's driveway. Somebody's driveway. Ooh, this is crazy. I never seen anything like this. Never. In all my years of living here, I never seen anything like this.
You might say, well, Angela, this is Donald Trump's America, right? Slashing FEMA funding. Donald Trump doesn't want to use our taxpayer dollars to care for us when we have disasters, things that our taxpayer dollars should go toward, right? All of America is less functional. People have fewer resources. Local emergency response is delayed because of a lack of federal funding. So that's understandable that everything is slowed down because, you know, it's the enshittification of the United States under Donald Trump. And then some people might say, like, well, Angela, it's more complicated than that. This is a lack of investment in infrastructure that's been going on for decades in this country. We have aging electrical grids. We have utility companies who have not prioritized doing things like burying power lines or updating the electrical grid or making sure that they are equipped to deal with these kinds of disasters at all. There's so much lack of infrastructure that is finally catching up to all of us in the US. And to both of those things, I would say, yes, absolutely, that's true. That's what I mean when I say that this portends poorly for the rest of us around the country. More and more communities are facing the reality that Donald Trump and the Republicans will not send disaster relief. We are paying our taxpayer dollars to the federal government. We are not getting relief funding when we have natural disasters. We're not getting support from the government in the wake of our homes and our schools and our businesses and our churches being flattened in the wake of floods and tornadoes and hurricanes, etc. Fires here out in the West, we're not getting the kind of assistance that we need. Well, that's a breakdown of the government. All of that money is going to like Palantir and Elon Musk instead of to you and your community after natural disasters. All of that money is going toward the graft and corruption. All of that money is going to fund concentration camps in the United States. And by fund concentration camps, I mean the for-profit corporations, Geo Group and Core Civic, that are running those concentration camps. And all of this aging infrastructure, corruption in the government, a breakdown of every facet of the ways government is supposed to provide for the people, all of that makes all of our communities far more vulnerable. Add on top of that a climate change reality, and we're looking at compounding potential catastrophes in communities all around the country. But there's more than that going on in Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana is almost 80% Black. And if you think that that does not inform, in a state like Indiana that is run by hardcore white supremacist MAGA Republicans, like full-on Christo-fascist Republicans, have you listened to what the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana has been saying, right? If you don't think that informs the decision making, if you think that white supremacy does not inform who gets their electricity turned on first, which communities get the funds and get the focus when it comes to disaster relief, then you are deluding yourself.
Look at us. We've been resilient for the past 11 days. The whole world didn't know that we were going through this until about day 7. So stop the stereotypes and pay attention to how resilient we've been, how we've come together as a community, how we're helping our neighbors, how people are now helping us as well.
It is a conscious choice to leave the residents of Gary, Indiana for last. It is a conscious choice for Governor Braun to wait until today to ask for assistance for the residents of Gary, Indiana, almost 2 weeks after they lost power when multiple tornadoes hit their town and a derecho.
What kind of help does your community still need? What are you looking for? Like, I'm thinking about phone charging capabilities to be able to call your loved ones. And we're looking at the video of what you guys have lived through. And again, everybody here, a lot of people here are still in the dark, no power, little food, no ways to get around, vehicles ruined. What do people need right now?
The people need help. The people need generators. They need gas cards. They need gift cards. They need money. They need their life back. They need portable chargers, portable fans, battery-powered fans, medication. People have their diabetes medication in coolers. They need styrofoam coolers, ice bags. They need their power back on.
Thank you both very much for being here tonight under these circumstances. Adriana, I want to start with you. Talk to us about what you and your neighbors have been dealing with since last week's storms. It sounds pretty miserable, to say the least.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Me and my neighbors have been hot, in the dark, scared, watching out through our windows, watching after each other, having each other's back, taking care of each other. And yeah.
I mean, it's just hard to imagine. I mean, all you have to do is just imagine yourself wherever you are, when you turn off the lights. That's what it's like for you guys all the time. And you mentioned the heat.
That's a conscious choice. That's a conscious choice. And every time I talk about, like the Confederate cemetery in Ohio, and I talk about how much racism there is in northern states, I get people particularly outside the United States who say, like, those were states in the Union. They weren't in the Confederacy. So why is there this long-lasting history, legacy of racism there? The Midwest, well, gosh, you guys, it's everywhere in the US, but like the Midwest in particular is not exempt from being hella racist. Now, I know I'm in Oregon, where our state constitution denied rights and property ownership to Black Americans for a really, really long time. Like, Oregon has a deep racist history. We are a sundown state. There are still sundown towns in Oregon. This is not like pot kettle, right? This is a problem that's in every state in the US, but it is more pronounced in Republican states where white supremacists are emboldened and are running the government and often running utility companies and corporations, right? There's much more overt racism. Indiana in particular, you guys, like 1 in 3 white men in Indiana was a member, an out and proud member of the KKK in the 1920s and 30s. Long lasting legacy of racism in that state. And again, look at the governor and lieutenant governor, look at members of the legislature, Republican members of the legislature, look at how normalized racism is in that state. And when you have the dismantling of rights for Black Americans, when you have the Supreme Court saying, hey, you know what, we're super down with dismantling voting rights for Black Americans, civil rights for Black Americans, when you're seeing the regime overtly doing things like trying to name ships after Donald Trump when they should name them after Black members of the Navy who have a long decorated career, when you see Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth firing in particular Black women in the military, when you see the Naval Academy, one of the first things that was done in 2025 was they stripped out all of these books from the Naval Academy library that were written by Black authors. When you see the Park Service being forced to take down signs educating people about the history of chattel slavery and racism in the United States, then it's no wonder racism is emboldened, it's being normalized in this country. All of the racism that was like low-key under the surface during the like liberal woke days of, you know, previous administrations, it's now out and proud again. Because it was never really dealt with, it was never really unpacked, it's always been there. And I think a lot of Black Americans in the South would say, like, this is how it's been for us this whole time. You guys, you just didn't notice, right? But when we're looking at the way that resources are stretched so thin because so many of them are being funneled straight up to the billionaires, when you're looking at the systems falling apart, the racism becomes so much more apparent when there are fewer resources to go around. And racists are running the show. Republicans are running the show. It is Black Americans who will suffer first by design, by intent. I want you to understand that by cutting FEMA, by cutting Medicaid, by cutting SNAP, by cutting Affordable Care Act subsidies, by wrecking every program they possibly can in this government, the intent was to hurt all Americans, but to hurt Black Americans the most. If you don't believe me, go back and watch my video on why we don't have Medicare for all. The answer is that white Americans would rather deny themselves the good things that we deserve, that our tax dollars should be funding, if it means that Black Americans are denied access to those things. Way too many Americans will cut off their nose to spite their face. What is happening in Gary, Indiana is a canary in the coal mine situation because Black Americans are the most impacted, the most targeted. They feel the impacts of fascism first, right? But it doesn't mean that those impacts are not going to cascade out to all of the rest of us. What is happening to the folks of Gary, Indiana, you think will happen to you because you live in a white community. That's not true. The folks in Gary need their utilities restored. They need emergency relief. They're not getting it because of racism. The only way they will get it is if all of us raise a stink. Because who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. The government is not looking out for us. We have to make sure that we advocate for our neighbors. We advocate for our allies, our friends, our fellow Americans, even if they're all the way in the Midwest.